Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another NASCAR edition of the OK Listen Here Roundtable. I am your host, Dawson Heywood, joined today with the great mind, Philip Pilkington, who was at the Coca-Cola 600 this weekend, and what a weekend it was. Philip, after that, whatever that was, how are we feeling on this Tuesday after this weekend's events?
We're pretty good. However, I'm not really sure what you're talking about as I attended the Coca-Cola 375 this weekend. There was no Coca-Cola 600, but yeah, no, overall it was a good weekend. Got to hang out with you. We smoked a stogie, bought some new
And
diecasts,
hold
and
on, I want to stop you there. You smoked one stogie. I smoked two in the amount of time it got you to get through 3/4 of yours. Let
yeah,
me clear that up.
well, you know how I am. I do a lot more talking than you do, as I love to hear myself talk. So,
Yeah,
hanging out with your
that's
wife
why we
and
got a podcast.
yeah, I mean, your wife, your sister over there, I don't get to see them much. You get to see them a lot more than I do, and obviously, trying to get to know your wife a little better as I'm very good friends with her cousin, but don't know her so well, and I like her because I can say inappropriate things and she thinks they're funny. So I kind of just kept going with it.
Yeah, it was a great time. Philip and I, of course, we our parents live two doors away from each other. So anytime that both of us can link up, there's always some cigars and some alcohol involved, and it's always a good time. So, but yeah, we sat there, chopped it up a good bit. Didn't really watch the Pacers Boston game that night. There's a lot more talking than watching going on that night, but nonetheless, always a great time to hang out with you in person, and absolutely buying some diecast, which I am now at the point where I'm like, okay, I need to find some space to put all of these. You can go check out what my current situation is on Twitter. I got like one shelf that I have all my diecast on. I'm needing to expand. So, but always a good time. No free shout outs, but if you're in the Mooresville area, what's it called? The 34 booth diecast or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's a good spot. If you're a diecast collector like myself, yeah, it's a great spot to go get you something cheap. If you can't find it there, whatever it is you're looking for, more than likely you are not going to be able to find it anywhere else. But overall, great weekend for diecast collectors. I always love going to the track, going to those little rinky-dink tents that have always got something set up, and then of course going to booth 34 booth whatever the hell it's called. I don't really know. But yeah, ultimately a fantastic weekend. Speed Street was fun, all that fun stuff. So,
it
but
was. I do want to offer my condolences, though, as we'll get into this in a second, but to all the people and all the families who found out that the mom or the dad of the family is losing their job come November, because
yeah,
we're going to get into this. But a lot of people are going to be unemployed here come November. I know that's what we're about to get into. So it was a fun weekend, and also shout out to all the veterans and everyone that paid the ultimate sacrifice with it being Memorial Day. As we say, it's not 600 miles of fun; it's 600 miles of freedom and 600 miles of remembrance. So it was a special weekend. Got to see the greatest president of all time, Donald Trump, and yeah, now I'm ready to talk a little NASCAR and be on maybe a little less of a serious note.
yeah, so let's get into the meat of this podcast, starting off with our weekly news. And from the looks of it, looks like JTG Jordy and Stenhouse are not really gonna pursue too heavy to try to appeal the penalties issued to them after the North Wilkesboro fiasco. I think to a certain extent, like looking back, obviously you get the crew and family members involved. I can understand if Stenhouse is swinging at Kyle Busch, but the second you get a lot more people involved, that's when it becomes a much greater issue. So to an extent, I understand, not appealing it, but I mean, it was a company decision. Either try to appeal it or don't. That's up to them. Personally, I think, hey, worst they can do is tell you no, right? It's not like they can fine you even more. So, but that's just my opinion on it. I obviously don't work in the front office there, and what is $75,000 to that team? So, that's kind of my take on it. But yeah, no appeals. It looks like, and I think today was the deadline. Today, May 28th, when we're recording this, I think today was the deadline, and I haven't seen anything about it.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping they'd appeal maybe the fine part. Obviously, the suspensions are not going to get, you know, upheld, but it is the largest fine ever for a post race incident. It's a little hefty, but again, like you said, is it worth the hassle for $75,000? Probably not.
Yeah. And then in further news, AM Racing and Joe Williams, Hailie Deegan's crew chief, parted ways. Matt Lucas, the current competition director for AM Racing, will step in as interim crew chief at Portland and Sonoma, and they hope to have someone stepping in place more full time after Sonoma. So I know that's your girl, Phil. So how does this affect things for Hailie Deegan? I mean, I know she hasn't been like a top 10 contender every single week, but given that it's her first year in the equipment that she's in, I mean, I thought she's been doing, pretty decently well, but I'm curious to know what your take is on this.
Yeah, the unfortunate situation she's in right now is she's a better intermediate racer and they don't have the best equipment. And usually when you're in that situation, you run better on the short tracks, but she's not a great short track racer. But, I was there Saturday, thought there were a few head scratching moves, some of which I think worked out for him, some of which didn't. I don't know what the whole story is behind this, but there's been some head scratching moves throughout the entire year. And then also, it seems like when she does have a bad car, it doesn't seem to get any better. Don't know if that's a crew chief issue. Don't know if that's her not communicating well because it's her first year in a new series. So not really sure, but hopefully this, hindsight will be 2020 at some point, and hopefully when we look back, it'll be the right decision. But who knows? It's been a little bit of an underwhelming performance season, but also she's been caught up in some wrecks that weren't her fault, and that's hurt her. So, um, is what it is. They're going to go to, like you said, back-to-back road courses here, so be a good time to get very familiar with the new crew chief, even though it'll probably be just a 2-race deal because, hey, a lot of decisions made during a road course when it comes on top of the pit box.
Yeah, so a lot of moving around, and I guess silly season's really starting to really kick off because as of today, it has been announced that, and this is reading straight off Twitter here. So, Stewart-Haas Racing, co-owned by Tony Stewart and Gene Haas, announced its closure at the end of the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series season after 15 years in the sport. The decision, described as difficult and not made quickly, was attributed to reaching a point in their personal and business lives where it's time to pass the torch. The team, which has won 2 championships, but both of those were from Kevin Harvick, weren't? No, one was from Tony Stewart.
Yeah,
Another one was from Harvick.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 69 Cup Series victories will sell its 4 charters, with plans indicating that Front Row, 23XI, and Trackhouse are each expected to buy one, while the buyer for the 4th charter remains unclear. Philip, we dove and went down a deep, deep rabbit hole a few weeks ago on this topic right here, which we kind of saw coming, but now that it's out there and it's actually happening, Front Row looks like they're getting a charter. 23XI is getting one. Trackhouse is getting one. And then there's one more that we still have to figure out what they're doing with. So now we get into hypothetical season, Philip. And I know we love our hypotheticals. So we have a great one sitting here right in front of us. So I'll let you start. What does this mean for the sport? What does the future of Front Row, 23XI, Trackhouse, and of course the 4 drivers at Stewart-Haas currently, what does this mean for them moving forward?
Well, let's just get the obvious out of the way. Trackhouse is going to have Zane Smith running for them full time next year. They needed a charter.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the first one. That's the easy one, and enough said.
Yep.
Front Row. Front Row now, if they do purchase one of these charters, all this is obviously speculation, they will now have 2 open seats. This is where you would most likely see at least 1, maybe even 2 of the current Stewart-Haas drivers go. Chase Briscoe has been backed by Ford through much of his career. I would actually be surprised if he doesn't go to one of those 2 Front Row charters. The 2311 one, wow, there's a lot they can do with this. There's some talent in the Xfinity series. Chandler Smith, Sheldon Creed, but they could also go poach a guy who's kind of been a journeyman driver that maybe hasn't been necessarily with Toyota the whole time. What are their thoughts on a Josh Berry who's not committed to Ford? He was a Stewart-Haas, specific guy. So I don't know. They could always go try and poach somebody from another Cup Series or Xfinity Series manufacturer. What was the other one? Oh, I guess we already hit on it. And then where's the fourth one going? I've heard Roush is a potential player. So wouldn't be surprised if Trackhouse bought both of them.
Mm-hmm.
That way they
I
could run
did see
SVG.
Brad Keselowski put something on Twitter earlier today saying he's about $30 million short of buying another charter. Maybe that he should start a GoFundMe. So who knows how much validity is in that, but I don't know how, take that with a grain of salt.
Well, I think the joke there is $30 million short of a charter is zero. That's the going rate for a charter is about $30 million. So um, we'll see. Brad, maybe if he quit spending so much money on hand sanitizer, he would have more money to spend on that. Yeah, sorry, Brad's a germaphobe. For those who don't know, so that's the reason I was making that joke.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see Trackhouse. Just because, I mean, again, Daniel Suarez's contract runs out this year, and it sounds to me like Wood Brothers will probably, most definitely get rid of Harrison Burton. And then it sounds to me, again, this is all speculation. This is just things that I'm seeing online and rumors that are going around. But it looks like one of the Stewart-Haas guys will move down to the Wood Brothers, which means if Trackhouse doesn't re-up on Daniel Suarez, Wood Brothers ain't going to reach up and get him, leaving two spots open, which means Zane Smith and SVG, do they get their charters? And then I pose the question this seems to be, for Trackhouse particularly, this seems to be working out way too dang perfectly. So my question is how long is it possible that the teams kind of knew about this coming into the season and well into, last year? How long have the teams kind of known that this was something that was likely going to happen?
That's a really good point because when Trackhouse, let's go back to when I don't know the exact date, I don't have it in front of me, but when Trackhouse signed Zane Smith and then leased him to Spire. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
Spire had acquired a charter from Live Fast Racing, BJ McLeod, and Matt Tift. Clearly, to us at the time, they had, hey, in 2025, they're going to have 3 drivers and 2 charters. Because at the time, we actually thought that Daniel Suarez was under contract for another year because he got a multi-year extension last year after the 500. So we thought that meant this year and next year.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question that obviously we can't answer, but my guess is ramblings of this have happened, have been around. People had ideas for a long time, especially with their contract with Ford being up at the end of 2025. I would think it'd be fair to say this didn't start happening a week or two ago.
No,
And if it,
absolutely not.
yeah. So, and then when um, McDowell left to go to Spire, knowing they're not going to have to like lease a charter to Trackhouse the first year, I think, yeah, that makes it even more make sense now. But yeah, who knows when these ramblings started?
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what Front Row does because now that they have 2 just open charters, and they're not like a top of the line team. They're a good team. Obviously, they've won Daytona 500s. They've competed in the playoffs a little bit, but they're not like a consistent contender. And so, adding 2 additional drivers, I would like to think that this kind of elevates them a little bit moving into the future, and they could kind of be on like an RFK type level. You know, uh, Not, again, like I said, not like a tier 1, but maybe like a tier 2.5 almost with this move. So I don't know who they would go and get, but Trackhouse is pretty easy to determine. 23XI. I would like to see them maybe reach down, pick someone up that because Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick, both of them are at this point they're vets. And so I'd like to see them reach in and pick someone, a first year driver in the Cup Series up. I think that would be a lot of fun for them. And then, man, there's so much that fourth charter where it can go and what they can do. And I really don't know. Like you said, I think Trackhouse would be a perfect landing spot for it. But then the question poses, who does Trackhouse? I mean, do they re-sign Daniel Suarez? And then we have Chastain, Suarez, Smith, and SVG all on the same team. I mean, that could be a very real possibility. And that right there would be a force to be reckoned with.
It would. The one thing I'll say about 2311, and I don't think this is going to happen, but what if they don't go get a young driver? What if they don't get a rookie? What if they go get the guy who owns the team and Denny Hamlin comes over and runs for them? And then, it's on Gibbs to go pull up Sheldon Creed, to pull up Chandler Smith, to give Ryan Truex a shot, So I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen, but would it'd be the biggest shock I've ever had in silly season news if they said, yeah, Denny Hamlin's going to run for 2311 next year. No, it would definitely not.
Yeah, because he just signed a contract with JGR last year, like an extension with them for a few years, didn't he?
He did, but it'd be one of those things where it's like you own the team. There's already some help there,
Yeah.
I could see them just kind of being a mutual,
Parting
like
of ways.
2311 buys the contract rights from Gibbs or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's, like I said, I don't think it's going to happen, but,
it is a possibility.
It's just a possibility. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I will sit here and ride 23XI like nobody's business. And so I think additionally, on top of, maybe adding Denny Hamlin, maybe they do go and they get that fourth charter, from Stewart-Haas. So they get two of them. And then you bring over Denny Hamlin and you get a new guy onto the scene. And then you go and you compete to be the tier one Toyota team in the series. And so I think that would be super fun. I've heard, the 23XI shop is insane from what I've been hearing from everyone online. And so I don't know. I think I've said it once, I say it again. I think 23XI is, I think they're the next big thing in NASCAR. I think they're going to be the team that kind of leads us into a new era where Hendrick and JGR aren't dominating as much. I think it's going to be 23XI and Trackhouse. And so truthfully and honestly, I think that fourth charter either goes to 23XI or Trackhouse. I don't really see anyone else reaching over and getting it. I don't see RFK doing it. I think it's going to be one of those two teams.
Yeah, I think they're definitely the leading competitors. I'm not going to count RFK out too quickly, solely because this is a team who, for the last couple of years, they've kind of been saying they wouldn't mind expanding.
Yeah.
Especially with their uptake in victories over the last years. They've won 4 races, not including this year, but in 22 and 23 combined, all those obviously with Chris Buescher. Oh, now they've won, I guess, 5 because they have won a race this year. I just remember that Brad won a couple weeks ago at Darlington. So, actually, if you count the dual races in 2022, they swept those. Obviously, those aren't points races.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I mean, I think this used to be a 5-car team not that long ago. I mean, it's hard to remember because it feels longer ago than it was that they were a 5-car super team. So, Brad said he wants to get back to that. I mean, obviously, you can no longer have 5 cars. Can
you run 4 charters and then 1 open?
I'm not sure. I would guess there's a maximum number of races that you could run a 5th car. I mean, obviously, I don't think you can do what 4 charters and then do what JTG Doherty did a few years ago with Ryan Preece, where he was open for all 36 races.
Yeah.
But I don't know because it used to be technically you were only supposed to have 4 cars per owner, and then what they did is teams would get a 5th car, and the owner's wife owned the 5th car, and that was how they got away with it. Like, yeah, you can't do that anymore. So
I will say, being in a bunch of Ricky Stenhouse and JTG Doherty racing fan groups, some of them fans are just like, oh, JTGD should go and get another charter, yada yada, and like I'm just on the boat of like, look, if they're going to run another car, it's going to be like what they did with Ryan Preece a few years ago. They're just going to run open all season long, if anything at all. So I don't see them even having an open driver anytime in the near future, unless like, someone like Hendrick or Spire or any of the other Chevy drivers need to send someone down just to do it. So I'm speaking to all my Stenhouse fans here. They're not going to reach up and get another charter. It's just not going to happen. So don't even give your hopes up there. But
I'm just going to say one thing. I agree with you, but come November the 10th, Ryan Brees is a free agent. Just saying. And they haven't. And I was just being a smart ass.
I mean, it's an interesting take. I mean, yeah, like I don't know. It'd be interesting to see someone. See now, here's my question. When you have teams like Hendrick Motorsports, like Joe Gibbs, like 23XI, there's a bunch of teams that are out and they're competing every single week. They would make every single race, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then generally speaking, there are not 4 other open drivers competing for a position. And so my question is, with these charters going for $30 million, like, are they really worth? Like, what is so special? Like, if you're a team like Hendrick, you have the best cars in the series, 4 of the best drivers in the series, arguably. Why do you need a charter? Like, what is the benefit of having a charter?
So the first and foremost is under the current charter agreement is say you finish 27th and you're a chartered team, you would receive more money than an unchartered team finishing 27th. So there's that. That's the first and foremost. The second one is, and we're about to go down a rabbit hole with this comment I'm about to make in a second once we get done with this conversation. Technically, under the current rule book, you must race all 26 regular season races in order to qualify for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And now everything you just said is 100% true, but when that entry list is 42 for the Daytona 500, there's 40 spots. Yes, you would like to think that Hendrick, Penske, Gibbs, their team would get in, but what if it didn't? What if Alex Bowman didn't have a charter and for some crazy reason didn't get in and then won 2 races and then couldn't compete in the playoffs? That's the biggest thing. It's a security blanket. And again, there is a financial benefit. I know where you're saying like 30 million you buy. Are you really receiving that much more? I mean, how long does it take to pay off itself? That is true. But now that sponsors know about the charter system, they like it. It guarantees you a spot. So it's a weird deal. The charter system was only invented because so many teams are pulling out of NASCAR because the sport was dying and the price of goods was up, and it was I thought it should have been a temporary fix. Now the teams want it to be permanent because they invested all this money in it, but that's a conversation for another day. So that's kind of the long answer of what you asked. Sorry, I should have gave you a shorter answer.
No, it's good. This is why we have a podcast. Now, at the Xfinity and the Truck Series level, do they have a charter system? I mean, without going too deep, no. Is it all open?
Yeah, so technically everybody's an open team.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I guess time will tell kind of what those 4 charters, what goes on with them, where they go. Again, just to kind of recap everything, looks like Front Row, 23XI, and Trackhouse will be getting at least one, leaving 1 free open charter. We didn't really go too much into this, but where do we see the 4 current drivers for Stewart Haas? Where do we see them going? Like, I know you said Ryan Preece, he's a free agent this year, but I think Briscoe is in the top running for going to Wood Brothers, but then that leaves Josh Berry, who of course is in his first season, Noah Gragson, who's in his second, and who am I forgetting here? Oh, Ryan Preece. And so that leaves
Ryan Preece, Noah Gragson, Josh Berry, and Chase Briscoe. Yeah.
Yeah. So where do they go? I think we already addressed like 1 or 2 of them goes to Front Row automatically.
Yeah, and look, Briscoe's going to have a job next year, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was great in the Xfinity Series, Ford guy. He hasn't been phenomenal here, but the equipment has been crap. So Ford's given him the benefit of the doubt. He will either go to the 21 or Front Row Motorsports, and I will be shocked if that's not where we see Chase Briscoe next year.
Yeah.
Ryan Preece. He technically was signed as a Ford development driver when he left JTG Doherty, and from what I understand, that contract is through 2025. Now, we don't know the details of that deal. I could be wrong about the 2025 thing. And with that being said, I don't know if it has to be Cup, but I would not be totally shocked if he maybe goes to like the 21 team. Then the other two. Noah's going to land somewhere. Noah's
Oh,
an Xfinity
easily.
Series champion. Noah's
Very
part
marketable.
of this Noah's part of this great class that's coming up right now through the ranks with Ty Gibbs, Austin Cindric, him,
I do have a
Sam
funny.
Mayer.
I do have a funny story about Noah Gragson once we get done with this topic.
Yeah. So Noah won't go to Trackhouse, but Noah is a former Chevy guy. He's not a Ford big time deal, so Toyota could take a chance on 2311. I mean, I don't see it happening, but would I'd be totally shocked? No, I would hate to see Noah have to go back to the Xfinity Series. And then Josh Berry, I think he's the wild card one here just because of his age. Yeah, he's got the
Mm-hmm.
talent. If he stays full time for the next 5 to 6 years, he'll probably win a Cup race. He's really good on the short tracks. He's adapted well to the intermediates. I know he won an Xfinity race at Charlotte a couple years ago, but this is a guy that you know ran in the Cars Tour for was running in the Cars Tour for Dale Earnhardt Jr. like 4 or 5 years ago, and he was already in his upper 20s or early 30s. So, if you got a seat, he's not going to tear up your equipment. But if I was him, I'd be the most probably worried of the four guys.
Yeah. So basically, what I'm hearing is JTG Doherty, go ahead and get that number 37 car, unwrap it, and let's slap Josh Berry in there in an open seat for for next season. But yeah, I think of all those drivers, like you said, I think Noah Gragson, he for sure has the highest potential out of any of them. He's super marketable wherever he goes. He's going to do all right. He's going to be marketable. He's going to bring in a ton of money. And so again, I'm going to sit here and ride 23XI again. But as far as like where a good fit for him would be, new team. Well, I say new team. They've been around for a little bit, but team trying to brand themselves and define themselves and who they are and what they're about. Man, I'm telling you what, there aren't many drivers out there that are quite doing that, quite like Noah Gragson. So I think he would be a great addition to the 23XI team. So, yep.
What's your Noah story?
Oh, my Noah story. All right. So this past weekend at the Xfinity race, we had the privilege of sitting up in one of the condos on turn one. My family knows a guy who owns one of them, and it was just open for the weekend for whatever reason. Couldn't really figure out why, but it was. And so they were like, hey, we know your son really likes NASCAR, so here, take it for Saturday. Y'all have it on Saturday and go hang out, have yourselves a good time. And so evidently Noah Gragson has a buddy who is, I guess, staying, who has a condo right next to him. And so Donald Trump was obviously at the track this weekend, and security everywhere, including in the condos. And so me, my dad, and my brother-in-law all come walking into the condos to go hop on the elevator to go up to our condo to go, watch the Xfinity race. Or actually, it was to go watch qualifying for Cup Series. That's what it was, practicing qualifying for the Cup Series. And a bunch of people walk around the corner. They're all in their Noah Gragson get up and all that. And I asked them, I'm like, oh, are y'all with Noah Gragson? They're like, yeah, we're good buddies with them. Okay, yeah. And they get to talking a little bit as we're waiting on the elevator. And they go, yeah, security is tight around here. And I bet you, now granted, these people were 3 sheets to the wind at this point. But they were like, yeah, they got security tight around here because Donald Trump's here. And I bet you these guys right here, talking about me and my dad and my brother-in-law, they were like, I bet you these guys right here are with Donald Trump. And they're probably a part of his security team. Again, I was just wearing like a t-shirt and khaki shorts. I don't know how they got that idea, but they did. So I just looked at them, knowing full and damn well that they're pissed drunk. And I just look at them and go, shh. And the just ghost white. All of them just ghost white. Like, don't know how to react to it. They think that I'm like some undercover security guard for Donald Trump. Like, they were whispering to themselves like, oh my God. Trump's up there. Like, Trump's here. He is right here. Like, they are freaking out. 3 sheets to the wind, have no idea what the hell they're talking about. But Noah Gragson and your buddies, if y'all are hearing this, I am not a Trump security guard, for the record. So sorry to freak all you guys out, but that was not the case.
I walked into that one.
Yeah, it was pretty damn funny right there. So that's my little Noah Gragson story. They were all just a bunch of goofballs, just having a good old time. So it was cool to kind of engage with them a little bit. So, but let's go ahead and move on to our Coca-Cola 373.5 recap. That is the correct mileage. I'm correcting that, right?
I think it was 375.5 miles, I believe. Maybe they got 151 laps in it. It might have been 377. I can't remember if they got in 251 or 250 laps. Either way, it's you're close.
Yeah. So, look, it's Charlotte. Charlotte's a good time because that is obviously the home track, and so Charlotte is a good time for me to take a look at the Truck and Xfinity Series. A lot of Saturdays and Friday nights, I don't have the time to watch the Trucker Xfinity Series, but when they come to Charlotte, I do try to watch both. And here are kind of my takeaways from at least the Xfinity race. I now understand, and I won't go on this tangent too terribly long, but I now understand why Natalie Decker doesn't have a full-time NASCAR ride. It did not take her but 2 laps to go about 3 seconds behind the next person. She was in last, and she fell behind by like 3 seconds to the next person. Just, it was terrible, a terrible performance. And so kind of looking at her and watching her engage with people after the race and the criticism that she's received. Look, I know I'm a huge Natalie Decker critic. I've been very vocal about it on this podcast. Some weeks I will sit here and talk about it for 10 minutes. Sometimes I try to keep it short, sweet, simple, and to the point. But here is my Natalie Decker take for this week. My Natalie Decker take for this week is maybe NASCAR is just not for her. I do need to remind everyone listening to this that Natalie Decker is a champion driver in another series, a road course series. And so maybe this upcoming weekend she's not driving this weekend at Portland or next weekend at Sonoma. And so I think if there was a good time for her to be put in a ride, it would be the next 2 weeks. Maybe she's just not a good oval driver. Again, she's won championships in other road course series. And so I understand the appeal to NASCAR. It is the biggest series in the United States right now. But unfortunately for her, I just don't think that it's it. And she's proven that time and time again. So again, this Saturday was very evident of that, falling behind just all race long. Just it was not pretty, and I get it. You're not in equipment for a long time because you don't have a full ride, and this is your kind of one shot to go do something with it. But to say that she did not seize she didn't seize the opportunity is what I'm trying to say here. And like it makes. If there was a time for her to prove herself, it would have been this weekend, and she didn't prove herself. And so I see her career as a NASCAR Xfinity driver, anything moving forward, it's going to be very, very difficult.
One thing I will say, and this is speculation, Thomas and I were talking about this on the way home from Charlotte on Monday morning. I wonder if, knowing that she's not that good, if they gave her a very old chassis with an old engine. Because to your point, she fell off so quickly. I mean, it was like, look, we've never driven an Xfinity Series car. I think after going through the Richard Petty driving experience, we wouldn't fall off that quick if we were in the same equipment as everybody else. She was driving for a mid-tier team, not a back-of-the-pack team. I really do wonder if they were just like, in case she wrecks, let's give her a car we're probably never going to drive again anyways. So, was it bad? Yes. Did she not even attempt to stay on the lead lap the first time she got lapped?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry. I do think it was a much older engine and a much older chassis than anyone else on the track, if I had to guess. Just from the history of what has happened in similar situations like this, there are certain drivers. I'm not going to name names.
Oh, please name names.
I'm not going to name teams. No, because I really have had people tell me they are giving said driver the oldest chassis just in case they get wrecked. The team is content collecting a paycheck. I've had people on the inside tell me about this with other drivers. I do not know this with Natalie. I'm really they told me this in confidence. So
yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so it's been done before. This could have been, I'm not saying it was, could have been one of those situations. That's all I'm going to say about it, and we can move on.
Yeah, so my only question to that would be, is this something that the drivers are made aware of? Like, do they know about this as it's happening? And if so, I mean, what's the point in even driving? Like, why would you agree to do that?
Um, yeah, I think they know. Um, you get the paycheck, you get to do what you love, I guess. Doing it for the love of going out there and driving, and I'm sure it's one hell of an adrenaline rush,
Yeah,
even
oh,
to
I'm
go as slow
sure.
as she was out there in Xfinity Series car. It's an adrenaline rush to stand down at the fence at the entrance to turn one when they're already out of the gas and watch them all go by. So um, that's all I got for you.
Yeah. So one guy that we did see a lot of, and I know this is a very quick transition, so sorry for the non-smoothness of that, but one guy that we did see, perform very well this weekend, Dawson Allgaier. I mean, I know this is generally speaking, again, like I said, I don't watch a lot of truck and Xfinity Series racing, but usually the Charlotte race is a good testament to where drivers in these two series are at. And Justin Allgaier, man, he was, he put himself in a winning position there until he wrecked, and then of course with what he did on Sunday, being put in Larson's car, just all of a sudden he had quite the freaking weekend. So hats off to Justin Allgaier. I think he is the next, Noah Gragson, Carson Hocevar. I believe he's next up.
Yeah, I mean, he's 37.
Is he
Um,
37?
yeah,
Okay, so erase that take completely. But
yeah,
regardless, he was a dog this weekend.
yeah. I mean, he's been a full time Cup Series driver in the past, not running for a big time team. He ran for H. Scott Motorsports in 2014 and 15. So, obviously running for a bottom tier team. Yeah, he had one top 10 in his Cup Series career, but this is a guy who has driven for Penske in the Xfinity Series back in the late 2000s, was championship contender. I would like to see him win a Xfinity championship. He's been so close so many times, multiple second place finishes in the Xfinity Series points, including a year ago. So, yeah, he's a great driver, and he doesn't tear up equipment. So he was the right guy to put in that situation. He's already a sim test guy for Hendrick, but yeah, I mean, hey,
Yeah.
he went out there and did what he had to do, right? He logged laps and he got the car in a winning position. Had Larson been able to come and the weather not played a part.
Yeah, so going on the Xfinity race, Chase Elliott would go on to win that one as he was, one of the Hendrick drivers for this race. I think they might have like 3 or 4 more races that they're going to drop down to the Xfinity level, some of the Hendrick drivers, um, but Chase Elliott would go ahead and win that one. So I think that actually put him. He's now won a race in all 3 of the major NASCAR series. So congrats to him on that one.
Well, he had won one before there. I mean,
Did it
he's won a championship, hasn't
in Xfinity? I don't know. I thought I saw something somewhere where it was like, now he has won in all 3. Like I don't
he?
know.
No, he's won at Charlotte now in all
Oh,
three.
gotcha. One in Charlotte now. Okay, so
Yeah, he
I
had
was in
never
the
won at
ballpark.
Charlotte.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're in the ballpark, but
on my way to first base, not quite home.
Xfinity. Yeah. He won championship in the Xfinity Series his
Gotcha.
rookie year.
Gotcha. So, but overall, the Xfinity race was a fantastic race. Like you said before we hit the record button, I had definitely been there to see the better of the 2 races. And so that brings us to our next point. There is Coca-Cola 600 or Coca-Cola 373.5 or whatever you want to call it this year. But honestly, there is no better place in the United States of America to be on Memorial Day weekend than Charlotte Motor Speedway. Every year, man, even if you're not a NASCAR driver, if you're just a true American patriot, you could show up for all the pre-race festivities and be, you wouldn't even have to see the race. But that in and of itself is worth the price of admission. The NASCAR race is just there. They always have some, they have the helicopters that fly right next to your freaking face, the Blackhawks. They have the big plane that does almost not a barrel roll, but tilts over to the side, so it really shows you how big it is. They have a lot of dedications to, again, those that have given their lives for this country. And quite honestly, it's pretty moving. For is someone that is a proud supporter of America. It's quite a moving place to be, and I'm going to get a little bit political here. Something that I don't do quite often, since that's not I don't like to share my opinions on politics that much with anything tied to OK Listen Here, but I'm going to break that wall today. Look, and Philip, we could talk about this if you'd like to, but I'm just going to leave it at this. I find it super comical that if you wanted to make a statement about anything that you felt the need to make a statement for, with Trump being there, Memorial Day weekend, nothing but a bunch of rednecks watching cars go in circles. I find it hilarious that those pro-Palestine chumps didn't show up this weekend and make some noise. Now, you want to make some change, I'll tell you what you do. You go cause some noise at the Coca-Cola 600. But it seems to me like they're too damn chicken shit to do anything. So, if you ain't willing to make some noise at the Coca-Cola 600, you bunch of fucks, I ain't taking you seriously. If you want some real damn change, go make some real noise instead of marching on your little safe space, little pussy-ass universities. Yep.
I like it, but I don't think much change would have happened except for probably to the structure of their face. Like you said, those are the best rednecks around, or at NASCAR races. That probably would have not ended well. I could definitely see some hands being thrown.
Absolutely.
Had they shown up.
And so here's the point that I'm trying to make. And this is a message to all you pro-Palestine idiots out there who, for whatever reason, are gay and don't understand that all these people that are in Hamas or whatever would stone you the second that they saw you. You were too chicken shit to make noise at the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway this past weekend. Why? Why were you scared? That was a great opportunity for you to make some noise. Why were you scared? Because that's what you would have to actually fucking face if you actually tried to do some shit. You ain't gonna face that and you ain't gonna beat it. So, unless you go do something like that and disrupt the 600, you ain't gonna do shit. I promise you, you don't want to fuck with that crowd. So that's my warning to you all. And that's Dawson. That's Dawson goes AWOL.
That's Dawson goes AWOL. We're already at 42 minutes. And we got a lot to do.
We are. So, anyways, Memorial Day weekend. It's a great place to be. It's Charlotte Motor Speedway. Donald Trump showed up. Crowd went nuts. But obviously, there's the big controversy. The race was called short. Christopher Bell would end up winning the race. Kyle Larson would not end up competing. So the question is now circulating, and no one really has a clear, cutthroat answer to this. But should Kyle Larson be given a waiver and make playoffs this series? Because technically he did not race in this race.
Do you want to go first? You want me to go
first? I want you to go first because I'm kind of like, I don't really know what to. I'm indifferent. I'm really indifferent on it. I don't know what to think. So Philip, really, whatever you say here is kind of going to be probably what I think.
Well, I can tell you, I know how to take both sides to this. I think both sides have a legit argument based off the rule book. So let's just go based off what the rule book says. The rule book says you must compete in every regular season race. Waivers have been granted for things out of driver's control. Injury, out of your control. Wife goes into labor, out of control. Death in the family, out of your control. NASCAR decides to suspend you. Well, you shouldn't have done what you did, but if you get a one-race suspension, should it mean you're not eligible to win a championship? No, because in every other sport, you can get ejected from a game and still be, your team can still win a championship. This was in his control. He had a choice. Yeah, I get it was 18 months in the making. I get a lot went into this. At the end of the day, one of them is your job and one of them is your hobby. And I've always been a huge defender of Kyle Larson because, he's a Hendrick guy and I like it. I even liked him when he was with Ganassi. But no, he did not show up for the race. He didn't start the race. The points and even had it set, so had he gotten to go into it and won the race, Allgaier would have got credited with his first career Cup Series win because it's who starts the race. Yeah, that he shouldn't get one. I mean, and look, NASCAR is gonna piss off half of its fans regardless of what decision they make. I do actually, surprisingly, feel bad for NASCAR because if they give him a waiver, all the Hendrick haters and all the like Bubba fans especially are going to be like, oh man, it's Kyle Larson. But if they do give him, if they don't give him the waiver, all the Kyle Larson fans will be upset. I think the Chase Elliott fans will be upset. A lot of the William Byron fans, and that's because even though it's not like a team sport, a lot of them still are. Most Chase Elliott fans I know are like, well, if Chase ain't gonna win a race, I hope it's Kyle Larson. So they're pissing off half the group regardless. So that's my take. I can give you the other side based off the rule as well,
Well, let me
if you would like.
yeah, let me respond to that real quick. Just so here's kind of why I'm kind of like I don't really know what to think of this because let's just say in a hypothetical world, and I'm just using Stenhouse here just to use Stenhouse, he's my driver. But let's say in a hypothetical world, Ricky Stenhouse went and did this. He went to compete in the Indy 500, couldn't make it to the 600, and someone sat in for him. Would they treat if it was not Kyle Larson, would they treat every driver the same? Now, of course, looking at this, it would be very easy for NASCAR to be like, oh, yeah, absolutely, we would treat every single driver to the same. But I don't have confidence that they would. And so, just kind of after hearing you talk a little bit, like, I would say, like, per the rules, these are the rules, the rules. Like, no, you didn't compete in them all, you don't make playoffs. Like, that is the rule. So, I yield back. What is your other side of the argument?
So the other side of the argument, it goes to the intent of why they made the rule. The reason they made the rule is because they did not want a part-time driver, and this is mostly in the lower series, running a limited schedule, winning a race. For example, Ryan Truex, who won at Dover last year. AJ Allmendinger, his first kind of year back, where he came back in 2020 and started running a handful of Xfinity races. And now you're in the playoffs and you have a chance to run for a championship because you won a race, even though you weren't a full time driver. That was the intent of the rule. It wasn't to take guys who are clearly full time drivers out and punish them. So that's the other side of things. I see that argument. I think that's what NASCAR goes with because they know the intent of their rule book. That's what's going to happen. But I think by the way the rule's written, he shouldn't be allowed to compete for a championship. It's
Yeah,
just me.
absolutely. And then I do think there is something to be said about, Larson did do this to bring, there's kind of a debate going on about this, but Larson did do this to bring more attention to NASCAR. But the argument goes is that I think him going to the Indy Series did more for the Indy 500 than it did anything else. And so, like, I get he's acting as a vessel for NASCAR and kind of punching his way and making being that bridge between the two series and the two fan bases. Um, and so to an extent, like if they grant him that waiver because it is ultimately good for NASCAR, I would understand it. But like you said, the way that it is written, again, I do pose the question: would they be as lenient with every other driver in the series?
Yeah.
So
it's tough. They're in a tough spot. I actually, like I said, I do kind of feel bad for NASCAR, but hey, man, credits to Kyle though. If he doesn't, get caught speeding on pit road, he probably finishes top 10 in that race. So, good job by him, and we'll see
yeah,
what NASCAR does.
absolutely.
Obviously,
And then once again, I'm gonna sing my high praises for Justin Allgaier for putting that car in 13th, even though NASCAR decided to cut this race short. He was still very impressive to be put in the 13th position at that time, and so just singing my high praises for him. So that leads us into our next big topic of discussion. NASCAR decided to cut the Coca-Cola 600 short, leaving a lot of meat on that bone. And so, do we agree or do we disagree with NASCAR's decision to cut the race?
Totally disagree. So, as someone who was there, I will say the track was not drying as quick as I've seen it dry in the past. But do you know whose fault that was? It was NASCAR's fault. So
Ooh.
historically, and I've been to multiple tracks, including Charlotte, where I've been part of rain delays. Historically, what they do is they bring air titans out.
Mm-hmm.
The air titans blow compressed air onto the track, which kind of break up the water, get the standing water, and I don't just mean physical that you can see, but the kind of that top layer where it got soaked off, and it makes the track takes it from wet to damp. Well, how they get the rest of the dampness off is heat. They do that with jet dryers. There were no jet dryers on the track. There were two sets of air titans, and that was it. The reason why it stayed humid, I mean, it was going to stay humid because it was late at night, but had they used the jet dryers, it would have dried faster. That was the issue. They didn't do everything they could. And a lot of people stayed. And that was a brutal rainstorm. I'm under a 30-foot long tent. We had to hold it down. It was going to blow away. And there was a lightning storm going on. We were holding on to metal. Plenty of people in the stands stayed. Everyone was content with them restarting that race. They didn't do everything in their power to do it. And on top of it, if they were going to call it, they should have called it when the rain ended and said, you know what, we can't get this dry in time. They should have ran that race. The minute you put Air Titans out there, if there is no more weather, you have to restart it. Hell, even if they said, you know what, we're going to have a 2 o'clock cutoff, fine. At 155, say there's 10 laps to go. They've had to do that before at tracks without lights. You go back to the Spring Talladega race in 1988 where they had to fix the fence and they had to shorten that race due to daylight. You go back to the lone New Hampshire race in 2021 where they took the green flag. It started raining as they went into turn one. Kyle Busch wrecks. They red flag for rain, and they ran out of daylight in that race as well. And again, they at one time said, and now there's 10 laps to go. They could have done that at 155 if they didn't want to go till 2. Monday was a holiday. Last year, the Xfinity race at Charlotte did not end till almost 2 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday morning. And absolute bonehead move by NASCAR. Whoever made that decision should be fired. I've been to a lot of NASCAR races, seen a lot more on TV, seen the governing body pull a lot of dumb shit. That topped them all. I was pissed. Hell, we threw more food on the grill. We were ready to go. If Christopher Bell had any set of balls, he would have got out there and said, you know what? I'm glad I won the race, but NASCAR, you fucked up. Everybody stayed to watch us run this race. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get in my car and go drive 151 more laps by myself because that's what they came to stay for. That's what they deserve. The governing body is a bunch of jackasses. I hate NASCAR as a governing body, and this is another reason why. I know we are not doing the tip and cap shaking head at, but I'm just giving you a little preview. Shaking my head at NASCAR. Fuck you, NASCAR. That was the dumbest thing they've ever done, and they owe us 150 laps of the Coca-Cola 600 because when you start drying the track, you need to run the damn race. That was sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. You start drying the track. There's no more rain in the forecast. Clear skies. Like you said. Like I understand not wanting to run the race at 2 o'clock in the morning. That to me that makes absolute, total, and complete sense. Don't want to run it at 2 in the morning. Okay, I get it. But I was sitting there, of course, on Twitter on the way back to Nashville at the time, sitting in a hotel watching the rest of the race. And there's an individual, you can follow him on Twitter at Christian_Racing, Christian Espinoza, who lives in one of the Turn 1 condos there. And I just tweeted out to him because since he does live there, I was like, hey, can you please update us on track conditions at 1 o'clock? And he sent pictures of the track at 12. The turns, like you said, had they had those big jet dryers out there, that man, they would have been so dry. And y'all can go check this out. I'll retweet it right now so y'all can go see it pretty recently. But the track, again, like I said, if they just kept the jets out there, that track could have been dry, ready to go by 1 o'clock, 12, maybe even 12:30. But they decided not to. And then, of course, Monday is a holiday, and if you're a smart NASCAR fan, you know that delays happen. It is something that you have to prepare for. So what do? You take Monday off. Luckily, you didn't have to take Monday off, but you get a hotel for that Monday, and then you stay for the race if it gets delayed. They could. I don't understand why. At the very least, they didn't say, "Hey, it's raining. We're not going to continue the race tonight, but we're going to pick up tomorrow where we left off. So everyone go home and come back to the track tomorrow." I don't know why they wouldn't do that. I don't know why they don't do that anyways at any race. You can complete every single race. Now, I get if you're in California or Las Vegas or something, it's a long drive. But if you set that expectation to begin with, that, hey, if we can't get this race in on Sunday when it's regularly scheduled, if we can't get things started off by 2 o'clock on Monday afternoon, okay, then we're going to call the races. Like, I just think that why would they not try to at least run the rest of it on Monday?
So someone brought that up to Dave Moody yesterday, and he brought up a really good argument for it. Should that probably be changed? Yes, but you can't change the rule book at midnight.
Why the fuck not?
You can't go in there. It's always been the rule. It's not fair to the team who actually is leading the race. Hey, if we're past halfway, we can't get restarted on that calendar day. The race is official. You can't go in at midnight and change it. And I do agree with them on there. But at the end of the day, like I said, they should have just called it when it happened, or B, tried to dry the track correctly. And, you brought up the 1 o'clock thing. Look, if they were out there doing the jet dryers the way they should have, by getting up on the platform, and something that I saw at about 11:15 when it was a little more wet than I thought it would be, I knew that, again, if we could get one more lap of jet dryers, one more lap of Air Titans, the race probably could have restarted a little after midnight. But with the precautions in which they were taking, yes, it would have started after about 1:30, because they weren't putting jet dryers out on the track. They cheated the fans, and they know it. They'll never come out and admit it because they're a bunch of
Oh yeah.
jackasses. But
Why?
yeah, it
What
was
is accountability?
absolutely horrible. Yeah, NASCAR, the governing body of NASCAR's never had any accountability. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, it seems like once a month we're having some thing where we're pissed off at the governing body. I mean, it's just, we can sit here and talk about it all night, but we're at an hour already.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, it's ridiculous. And you know what? Whoever made that decision, yeah, I hope they get fired. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Absolutely. So, just to keep the podcast moving forward, I know we could sit here and talk about all night, but unfortunately, what is done is done. We will lead this into tipping your cap and shaking your head, which I think this entire last 10, 15 minutes has been nothing but a shaking your head. I think we can both agree on that, on our shaking our head. It was NASCAR and them calling the race. I think we can both agree on that.
Yeah.
All right. So that was kind of our shaking our head segment, but Philip, let's give the people something to be positive about. What are we tipping our caps to today?
I'm going to tip it to Tyler Reddick. Had to serve the drive-through penalty. Did a very good job of staying on the lead lap throughout almost the remainder of stage one, but when they pitted one lap later than the leaders, they did end up losing that lap. They got lucky. There was the late stage caution and was able to take the wave around. But when you rebound back from a penalty like that, and you stayed on the lead lap as long as you did, and when he came out of the pits, he was right in front of the leader. Ty Gibbs actually kind of drove away from him to stay on the lead lap, and then went on to, in a 600-mile race, you'd say, hey, you know what? A lot of time rebound, but it wasn't a 600-mile race, and to still do a top five, I'm going to give it to Ty Gibbs.
Yeah.
Or to Tyler Reddick.
Yeah,
sorry.
I gotcha. I will be tipping my cap. Of course, I've said his name time and time again today. Justin Allgaier, overall, just a fantastic weekend. Had a chance to win the Xfinity race had he not been in that accident. Took over for Larson, finished in 13th. I get that it was a condensed race and no one knew that it was ending right then and there, but hey, to be running in 13th place, it's a quite the feat to be accomplishing right there, especially coming in kind of last minute. So tipping my cap to Justin Allgaier, and I'm going to do a little bonus tipping your cap today. Going to give it to Willie B for the pass in the grass. I feel like it's a crime that we haven't even brought this up in this podcast at all, but just some good old-fashioned racing going on here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Good old passing the grasses. Tyler Reddick and Ty Gibbs try to duke it out against one another. So William Byron said, hey, I'm too fast for you two fuckheads. Let me by. they weren't letting him by. So what did he do? He passed in the grass. So go check out that highlight. Just again brings you back to some good old fashioned NASCAR racing.
There you go.
Yep.
Appreciate you giving my boy a shout out.
Absolutely. So let's move on to the Enjoy Illinois 300 preview at World Wide Technology Raceway. I don't really have much on World Wide Tech because you know that a lot of my preview comes from just the races in general that have accrued over the years. And we only have 2 races here at World Wide Technology. But here's what we do know. Better make sure your brakes are in peak performance this weekend. We see a lot of exploding brake rotors going on this week because the track is unique in the sense that there's an elevation change. And I can't remember if it was turn 1 or turn 3 that they have to like go down into. But regardless, one of those two, the brake rotors just they get super hot.
One.
Is it turn
one where they've had all the issues?
Yeah. So they go downhill and the brakes are working a little bit harder to get the car stopped, or at least slowed down enough to go through that turn smooth enough. So expect a lot of cautions to come out this weekend because of that issue right there, especially with probably some of the younger bucks. We saw a lot of mistakes happen last year. Again, those rotors just get hot and they go popping. Joey Logano and Kyle Busch are your 2 winners. Joey in 22, Kyle Busch in 23. And then Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, and Martin Truex Jr. are the only drivers to finish both NASCAR Cup Series races in the top 10. And then Chase Briscoe has the worst average finishing position of drivers that have completed both races. So that's my little preview for you.
All right, my preview I got for you. It's a weird racetrack. It's a 1.25 miles. Therefore, the teams have to run the intermediate package due to the distance of the track. However, the flat turns, heavy braking makes you feel much more like a short track in the way that it runs. So it's a lot of big test on the crew chiefs to find out how to set up their intermediate setup car or their intermediate rules package for a short track type braking. So it's different and it always makes for an exciting race. I probably won't get to watch much of it Sunday because we got regionals. So we'll see. But hey, it's brought some good races over the past couple of years. I remember the year before Cup went there, Truck went, and it was pretty exciting. And the Indy races are always good there as well. So it's going to be good to be back in good old St. Louis.
Good old St. Louis. So enjoy Illinois 300. It's going to be a fun race over here at World Wide Technology Raceway. So, Phil, let's go ahead and get into, I know we're just kind of speeding along here, but let's go ahead and get into our backstretch challenge. Once again, I kind of fell off a little bit. I had Hamlin, Blaney, Truex, Bowman, and Stenhouse. Blaney ended up not finishing the race, so Stenhouse took his place. Gave me an average finishing position of 14.25. Boo, which is my worst finish since Talladega. Philip, you had Larson, Elliott, Byron, Gibbs, and Reddick. Actually, a fantastic day for you. Larson, you can decide how you want to decipher this. It doesn't really matter. But we'll say Allgaier for right now since he took Larson's place. But he was your last place finish. Or on your team, he had the worst finish at 13th. But Elliott, Byron, Gibbs, and Reddick all finished within the top 10. So you finish if you count for...
Yeah, I was about to say, I should get credit with an average finish of 5 there because Larson, according to the record book, did not ever run that car.
Yeah, so if that's the rule that you want to make, then that's what we can do.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll do
Based
that.
off the,
Yeah, so we'll do that.
So Reddick just took over him by default.
Reddick took over him by default, which gives you an average finishing position of 5, leaving you with all top 10 drivers, thus beating my ass. 5 to 14.25, and Philip, you now lead this little competition, 8 wins to 6 and 1 tie. That being said,
and I have I think it's the best average finishing position of a points paying race. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I believe you.
We had better in the All-Star race in the Clash,
but yeah, you are correct. That is the best performance of the year. So congratulations, Philip. Home win for you. Big time home win. But who are you keeping this week?
Well, Chase Elliott didn't run here last year because he was suspended, but I'm going to keep him anyways.
Okay. Who's your number 2?
And man, I've rode with Larson all year, but do I want to give up William Byron? Well, hey, I'm here to win. Here to win. I want to stick to the guy who has scored the most average points per race this year and second overall in the points. I'm going to keep Larson.
All right, I like that pick right there. So with that being said, I'm going to keep Ryan Blaney this week. Performs pretty well here. And I'm also going to keep Truex here.
I wanted Truex.
Haha, gotcha.
It's a good short track racer.
Yep. So do you want first pick or second, third?
You pick because you lost.
All right. So with that being said, I'm going to take the driver who has the best average finishing position here and give me the guy that I hate the most, Kyle Busch.
Oh. So I get back to back.
You do get back to back.
You know what? Joey's due. And he's ran well here in the past. Give me Joey.
Okay.
And
I do like that pick.
Ty Gibbs.
It's a good one. All right. So that leaves me with a few drivers. So I have 3 of the top 4 on my list. Who do I want to go with? I have a Toyota, a Ford, and a Chevy. Perfectly balanced. So who do I want to go with? Give me the guy who has been pretty damn successful this year. Give me Denny Hamlin as my 4th driver. And then as my 5th driver and sitting in my pits because I may want to keep him next week, give me William Byron.
Ooh, I didn't even think about it. We have a road course after that. Well, hey, Willie B's been pretty damn good on the road courses. Maybe I need to start drafting me some road course players. But dang, you took both my picks.
Gotcha. Gotcha, bitch.
Yeah, you did. You did. Well, give me Bowman the Showman.
Bowman the
He's been
Showman.
Consistent lately. He's got like 5 straight top 10s. He's been there. Just good enough.
All right, let me write that down. Perfect. All right, let's get into. We are finally at the part of the podcast where Philip and I try to stump each other's. Hold on, let me recap this real quick. So I have. What the fuck? Blaney. I wrote down Ryan, not Blaney. So I have Blaney, Truex, Busch, Hamlin, Byron. That's a freaking lineup right there. You have Elliott, Larson, Logano, Gibbs, and Bowman. 2 dudes that are due in Logano and Gibbs. So this could be the week for either one of them. So generally speaking, Philip and I do a pretty good job at picking top 10 drivers. So we'll see if we get a winner this week. You know, and I thought of this. Philip. I think, and you can tell me no to this. I'm just proposing an idea to you. I think if we pick the winner, I think we should subtract 0.5 off of our average.
Sure, why not?
I'm going to write that down. If you see...
When's the last time one of us had the winner? You at Dover had Hamlin. When's the last time somebody had the winner?
I think that just adds to the novelty of it all. So, all right.
Yeah, you like this because you've had the winner a lot more than me. I see now why you're doing it.
Hey, you've
had the winner once.
If you speak now or forever hold your peace.
Nah, that's good.
Okay. All right. So let's get into, if you're not listening to this part of the podcast, we appreciate you guys so very much. We are an hour and 8 minutes. Good God. But this is the point of the podcast where Philip and I go ahead and we try to stump each other with 3 trivia questions apiece each week related to sports and, of course, NASCAR racing and all the other fun things. So, Philip, I am ready to be stumped today. What do you have for me?
I'm not going to lie. I totally forgot to come up with questions, so I'm just going to get some off the dome here.
Oof.
Hey, so the Women's College World Series starts this week. And the men's college tournament starts this week.
Boomer sooner.
What is the maximum number of games you can lose in the tournament and still win the national championship?
In the tournament? Oh, God. Hold on. I have to math here. Fuck. That's a lot of math because I know it's double elimination in the group stages. And then, so you can lose you can lose one in round one. You can lose one in the College World Series, and then is it a series in between? Do they do best of 3 in like the second round?
I don't know.
Fuck.
Do they?
I don't know. I think so. So,
Okay.
fuck. I'm going to say, so you can lose at least 2. I'm just going to go and say, I'm going to say 4, but if not 4, 2.
You can stick with 4 because you can lose 1 in regionals, 1 in super regionals, 1 in the group play of the World Series, and the 1 in the World Series final.
Gotcha. Okay. So, hip hip hooray. All right. Let's see what we got. I'll be honest, I kind of slacked on this part too. So I quite literally just put in, hey, give me 10 sports related trivia questions and answers about St. Louis. So,
Goodness.
Here we go. In January 2000, the then St. Louis Rams won the Super Bowl. Interestingly, one player missed the Super Bowl parade celebration through the streets of St. Louis because he claimed that he overslept. Who was this player?
I have no idea.
Isaac Bruce.
Okay.
All right.
Should have started naming players on the team that I actually knew. I was like, I don't think it was Kurt Warner. I was actually kind of leaning. I was like, I don't know, Ricky Prohl, Isaac Bruce. Should have started naming players. Marshall Faulk. Alrighty. What? Speaking of college and all that stuff, what 2 teams are matched up right now in the Women's College World Series where they will play each other in the first game, and also their baseball teams are matched up where they could play each other in a regional?
I feel like you're stumping me here, so I'm going to say Oklahoma for both, and Texas.
Well, yeah, that's the point. There's only one answer. There's only one team, or there's 2 teams. They're going to play each other, and I'm saying these 2 teams will probably play each other both this weekend. Like it's not like Oklahoma for baseball or softball. Like they're matched up, they're definitely playing in softball, and they will most likely play in baseball.
Oh, so Oklahoma.
And who's Oklahoma going to play?
Believe Oklahoma in the Women's World Series is set to play Duke.
So there's your answer.
Okay.
Same Oklahoma. They're going to play each other.
Gotcha. All right. I got to find another one for you, Phil. I'm sorry that I lacked on this. If Mason were here.
The first one wasn't even a real sports question. It was about a parade.
Hey, it was about a sports parade. A sports championship
I don't know about
parade. All right, you're right. You're right though. This is in 1945.
Oh, never mind. The Rams were in Cleveland back
then.
then.
Okay, here's a fun one for
Is it some Cardinals question, I guess, if it's from 1945?
Well, yeah, but here's actually a fun one for you. In the early 1990s, a group of investors attempted to bring an NFL expansion franchise to St. Louis. Eventually, the deal fell apart, and the NFL awarded expansion teams to other cities. What would have been the name of the proposed expansion team for St. Louis?
So the Cardinals had already left. The Rams were already a thing. Something dopey like the St. Louis Gateway or St. Louis Arches or something stupid like that.
Nope.
I have no idea.
Okay. It would be the St. Louis Stallions.
I did not know there were stallions in Missouri.
Didn't know that either. All right. Last question for me, Phil. What you got?
Just going to build off that question. What 2 cities got their expansion franchises over St. Louis in the early 90s?
It's got to be Carolina and Jacksonville.
There you go.
Okay. And then building off that, who is the Jacksonville Jaguars' first NFL draft pick?
Ooh, who did they take one that year? Was it Brunell?
Hang on, I'm looking it up.
I don't think it was Mark Brunell.
But... you are not correct. He was the second overall selection in the 1995 draft.
Yeah.
He is the Jaguars' only draft pick to be elected into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's an offensive tackle from the University of Southern California.
Yeah, and it was shoot. What is his name? I remember when he went in because they got the Hall of Fame game. It was the second time they'd played in the Hall of Fame game. The only other time they played was '95. I can picture his face too. Big white dude, bald.
Inducted in 2022.
Yeah. I can't remember. What is it?
Hang on, I want to give you one more hint. Because I know it's in your brain. I know it's in there.
Yeah.
We just got to dig a little bit. All right. He was in the same class as Sam Mills. Sam Mills, Richard Seymour, Bryant Young, Cliff Branch, Art McNally, Dick Vermelli, and Leroy Butler were also inducted in the Hall of Fame this year.
Yeah. Dick Vermeil.
Sorry.
That's not going to help me.
Well, it is Tony Baselli.
Yeah. That was bad. That was a bad miss.
Sorry, who knows anything about offensive tackles anyways? Womp womp. I say this as a former offensive lineman.
I remember him having I know he's got a normal first name and a weird last name.
Yeah, but all right. Well, that's been our trivia on the week, and that has been the podcast. So if you were listening to this point in the podcast, I know it was kind of a long one here, but we appreciate you guys for listening out. We will be recording tomorrow night in the All Sports Podcast. Not entirely sure who all is going to be there for that one, but nonetheless, we will be recording. Talking about a lot of stuff going on in the sports world. Probably some more college football 25 talk, quite honestly, is what it's going to turn out to be. Next week, Philip and I will be on the All Sports Podcast, and we are bringing in a very, 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 very special guest. So get excited for that one. I'm excited to interview this guy. I think you're excited to interview this guy. Someone that we've wanted to talk to. Someone that we've wanted to talk to for a long, long time. And give you a little hint, we've been wanting to talk to him since about 2016-ish. So super excited to have this guest on. If you were from our hometown, you might be able to guess who it is, but we'll leave it up to speculation for right now. Anyways, if you're listening to this part of the podcast, we appreciate you guys for listening. You can follow us on Spotify, YouTube. Of course, you can follow OK Listen Here Media Company on Facebook, Instagram, and, I'm just going to call it Twitter from now on, but you can follow us on Twitter as well. But we appreciate you guys for sticking around and supporting the group, supporting this podcast, and peace, love, and mercy. And I've got, after 24 episodes, you'd think I'd have a better exit than that. We need to come up with something for me to say at the very end. But regardless, guys, thanks you guys so much for listening. We will see you guys tomorrow.